I've spent large parts of my clinical career working with people who do not manage interpersonal conflict well. And the one commonality that I see amongst all of the people who fall into that group would be the failure to remain mindful of the fact that life is full of opportunities to keep your mouth shut. Now, the challenge with not remembering that you have the right and the opportunity to simply keep your mouth shut during interpersonal conflict is that you tend to react to what someone's saying rather than thoughtfully respond. And then when you react, you bite back and the other party bites back, and now you're really just having a fight. And once you start descending into that kind of space, there's very little opportunity to manage that conflict well. I'm not talking about resolving the conflict, I'm just talking about managing it to the degree that you don't cause serious relational rupture with, your partner or a colleague or a family member. So when you do snap back and react, rather than thoughtfully responding, what you're doing is engaging your autonomic nervous system's fight, flight, freeze response, and that very quickly closes down your neurological executive functioning, which means you, in a very short space of time, turn into an idiot. And so now your ability to manage conflict effectively is radically compromised. And because the party who you're engaging with has just been snapped back at, their executive functioning is closing down as we speak as well. And so now you've just got two idiots arguing with each other. And the likelihood of that being managed well is incredibly small. So one of the incredible things that happens when you remember that you have the right and the opportunity to simply not respond and keep your mouth shut when someone's having a go at you, is that you actually get to hear what they're saying in its entirety. And then two things generally happen there. One, the person's expecting you to jump in and cut them off, and in the absence of you interjecting, they can talk freely for a long period of time and might even tire themselves out. Now, at that point in time, the conflict becomes a lot easier to manage. And the other thing that happens is you get to hear what their rant and grievance is in its entirety, and that will allow you to respond to the parts that you think are the most effective points of navigation going forward in order to stop this thing descending into madness. So I think one of the more effective things you can do, once you've kept your mouth shut and let the other party rant for a bit, is to pick a couple of their points that you agree on. And what you want to do is, you want to focus on the process element of their grievance, right? Not the content. And by that, what I mean is, you can say things like, yeah, look, I agree. Yesterday, I was probably a bit dismissive of your concerns. And I agree, I don't think I gave you the opportunity to express yourself. And yeah, I agree, we probably should have tried to resolve this sooner. Like, all of those things you can agree upon. That's not you conceding ground, it's not you admitting fault necessarily. It's just you acknowledging that you could have handled it better, right? So find some points you agree on. It's very hard to argue with someone when they're agreeing with you. So as soon as you establish a few points of agreement, the other party's going to de-escalate, which means you can de-escalate and you can better manage yourself in that space. So once you've agreed on a couple of things, the next thing you want to do is just acknowledge a few things. And you're not excusing it, you're just acknowledging it in the attempt to understand it. And so you can say things like, and I acknowledge that was really unpleasant for you, and that I acknowledge that you felt offence and that your feelings were hurt. So again, I haven't really accepted fault for anything, but I've validated their concerns. I've agreed upon some parts that could have been handled better. And now when I respond sort of in a way that is a rebuttal or a defence of my behaviour in this scenario, I can just pick a few little bits and pieces and say, so whilst I acknowledge this and I agree with that, I had a different experience of, yesterday's conversation, of last week's argument, and you can point out what those things are. But because you've been so gracious in acknowledging and agreeing with certain positions of the other party, you've really reduced the likelihood of that person losing their shit. And if they do arc up again, you can say, look, I acknowledge this is upsetting for you. Again, you're not fucking agreeing with them. You're just acknowledging their discomfort, and then agree on some points about the process. And I agree, we could have spoken about this sooner. And the whole thing can fizzle out without either party losing their shit. And so what you're looking for is to manage the conflict in a way that doesn't descend into madness, not to win and not to lose. So really, my closing thoughts are, next time you have some kind of interpersonal conflict erupt, just remind yourself that life is full of opportunities to keep your mouth shut. And if that's not enough to assist you with pausing, and instead of just reacting like a manic nutter, thoughtfully responding, then remind yourself of that beautiful W.C. Fields quote, that you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to.